Alex Pfeiffer, thanks for joining us.
Yeah, it's a pleasure to be here.
So you are on this side of communications now. You began your career, Daily Caller, Fox News. What has the transition been like from the journalism side to the communication side?
I love journalism, and I should give some grand, lofty reason for why I left journalism to communications, but purely it was money. And the journalism industry
That's
is
typically why people leave journalism.
I respect the honesty.
Yeah, I think lots of people, I wanted to let my creative juices flow on the other side of things. But I like journalism a lot, but I like here because, look, when I worked at Fox, I worked for Tucker's show. And, obviously our show had a point of view. So for me to advocate then for, before this, having clients, now obviously working for the president, it was an easy transition because I was advocating for a point of view of Tucker, and now I do here doing comms. So it was pretty seamless. I miss sometimes working in media, but it's not
What do you miss about it?
the direct impact. I mean, when we were doing Tucker's show in the height of like 2020, COVID, the riots, everything, we would do a segment on something and it would you could see government policy change. I remember once we covered, I won't get into the details because I don't want to embarrass anyone, but we covered a bill in the Senate. And before we even covered the segment, just after we reached out for comment, a senator dropped their co-sponsorship of the bill. Just like the fear of being attacked by our show back then, when we were 4 million a night, we could change government policy. So
now you work for the leader of the free world.
I know. So it's almost like I've been working in government this whole time. But I miss it. Fox was fun. Tucker, I don't know if you read his obituary of his father. Tucker, the thing people don't realize about him is he's like the greatest writer. And that show, my main job was researching for the monologue, and Tucker would put it together. But just getting to read it every night, it was great. And but I love this job, and what's been fun so far is the pace as matched cable. I remember actually when I was thinking about working in the White House, I called Tucker actually, and he was like, "You're going to crush it because you're used to the pace." And the pace here has been relentless. I mean, as I'm sure you guys have experienced covering it.
That's been the theme of every conversation we've had so far.
Yeah, there are no days off, and there is no sense of we can wait to do this policy in September. Well, why wait till September? Let's just do it now.
Well, people always ask me, I was at CBS during the first administration and was running the evening news. And so you had 20 minutes to tell America about the world. And having covered the Obama administration, having covered the first Bush administration, Bush 43, I should say, having covered Biden, you could always okay, what's the story of the day from Washington? But during a Trump administration, especially this one, it's which one?
Yeah.
5, 6, 7 things going on at the same time.
And I think there's also sometimes the press makes a mistake. I think oftentimes, and it's just due to the nature of the press corps being all in the Acela corridor, from New York to D.C., that they'll cover sort of these wonky stories that aren't really affecting the public. To me, the story of the Trump administration has been the border. It's the thing the president ran on from day one. It's the thing he probably talked about the most on the campaign trail in all 3 campaigns. And border crossings are down 99% in some areas. I mean, the fact is, it's indisputable that the border's quiet. It's silent. There was a migrant shelter in San Diego that had to close because there are no migrants to be in the shelter. So, that to me is more interesting than a lot of the process stories that get covered. I think DC is always consumed with stories about personnel. But that doesn't affect voters. That doesn't affect people at home listening to this right now. People at home care about their safety, both financially and also, physically. So that's what this administration's focused on, whether it's immigration policies, crime policies, or economic policies, trying to drive down the cost of oil, trying to bring back manufacturing jobs. So we're focused on that. And I will say this, speaking about media, just to bring back to your opening topic, one big change or thing is I didn't notice how, don't mean to be rude, but how dumb political reporters are before I worked on comms. Because working on Tucker's show, we would do big picture things. And a lot of these political reporters, all the texts I got from reporters, I should show you them. It's all about the most meaningless stuff. Why do you, this is what you're spending your day chasing, these scoops that no one will remember a day from now. That's the one thing from media that this side of thing that really confuses me. How much effort is spent chasing stories no one will remember 30 minutes? They just want to be first.
So you're working now in an operation where you're trying to elevate, it seems like, new media and perhaps other voices that aren't part of the mainstream media. Could you talk a little bit about that strategy?
Sure.
And just the way you think Americans are getting
I
news?
view the new media, I think it's an instructive way to think about media is to think about media as the broad category and think about music. I'm sure if everyone here pulled up their Spotify or their iTunes or whatever, and we had our top 10 listened to songs, probably no one would share the same top 10 songs. Whereas, 20 years ago or whatever, they were just like hits. There was like the hit of the summer. Was there a hit of last summer? Like there aren't like broad hits anymore. And I view media that same way. In the same way music,
It
everyone's
was Brad Summer. You didn't hear?
What Brad Summer?
Brad Summer.
Brad Summer.
Brad Summer?
Would Kamala Harris's
yes,
campaign-
yes.
yes.
Charlie, what's her face? But I don't know any
Charlie
of her
XCX,
songs.
yes.
I don't know any of her songs. But yeah, I know that's a person.
Yeah.
Or the young pop person who wears all the makeup. Hot to
Chaperone.
trot. Yeah. But so my point is as in music, everyone's in their own little bubble. Same with media. I don't think like when my parents send me news articles, like there aren't news articles I've read, even though they're often about the White House. They're like, oh, Alex, I see you guys are doing this today at the White House, and it's something, I haven't read. So that's why it's important to do interviews and engage with the broad spectrum of press. And it doesn't mean that we've ignored legacy media, obviously. Like, obviously the New York Times is here every day, and, the former broadcast outlets you would work for. You have to engage broadly, because if you're only talking to a Washington Post and an ABC, you're not going to get most of the country. You're going to get only the people who read the Washington Post and ABC. And this might be I don't know if it's a rude comment, but the truth is if you read the Washington Post every single day of last year, you would think Donald Trump's the world's worst person and he's going to lose the election by 90%. We won. So that in itself is evidence that these legacy outlets don't have the sort of clout they used to. Now, obviously, they're important. But every media outlet is important because every podcaster, every social media influencer, every radio show, you name it, they all have their own audience. And more, they're all segmented there. So that audience that they have, that might be the only place that person gets their news from.
What is your media diet? What do you read?
So that's a good question. Unfortunately, a lot of Twitter. I can't help myself. Like when I'm going to bed, when I wake up, like the first thing I do when I think early, I wake up at 5:30, and like to slowly wake myself up, I'm just like scrolling, which is probably not a good way to start the day. I do read the
they call it doom scrolling.
Yes, and I do check out like the Wall Street Journal, the New York Times, CNN, Drudge Report, Breitbart. I like going through all the different.
So you're going to a legacy outlet, you're going to conservative
outlets. I like
outlets.
seeing all the front pages. Even of outlets I especially don't like. Like I think Drudge, it's really sad. I used to be obsessed with Matt Drudge. I read his memoir, Drudge Retort, I believe it was called. No, Drudge Retort was the profile of him. The Drudge Manifesto, that's his memoir. And it's a fun read. And his website was cool. And then he had this weird ideological shift. But I still actually like reading it because he'll link to these like crazy British tabloids like The Express and The Mirror that have like articles that are not at all based in reality. But I need to read that because more people are often reading those like UK Daily Express like articles that are fiction than like actually well-reported stories and like a serious outlet. So my diet is as broad as I can get it. The one thing I will say is, and this is bad because I'm right now talking on a podcast, is if I'm in the car, I'm either listening to music or doing phone calls. So
you're saying you're not a podcast person?
I'm not a podcast person, unfortunately, which is kind of ironic. But I like the audio, audio is not how as growing up, I will say audio, I will give credit. Rush Limbaugh is, I think, what made me conservative because my father would listen to Rush in the car. But currently when I'm in the car, I got to catch up on all my missed calls.
You're young. We saw in the last election, young men in particular, going for Trump versus where they would normally go, perhaps Democratic. What do you attribute that to? And do you think that's just a Trump thing, or do you think that that's something that's going to carry forward with Republicans? Yeah,
well, I'm funnily enough, I'm the Trump demographic. I'm a white, non-college graduate male. So I think that's our best performing demo. What I think it is I remember, I am young. I don't want to make you
You're
guys
Gen
feel,
Z.
I don't want to make you guys feel old. I'm 28.
You're elder or Gen Z?
No, that's actually millennial. I'm
Oh,
the
you're
last
the
year
last millennial.
Yeah, 1996
Oh,
is
so you're
the
a
last
cusper,
millennial.
Oh, I'm the first year
year.
millennial. I'm 82.
Okay,
there
so
we go.
we're
Same
bookended.
generation, different experiences. Yes.
In high school, I remember we had this guy, Tim Wise, come speak to our high school. He's like an anti-racist person, all about how white privilege and everything. I think the Democratic Party has been basically telling white men that they are like bad people, that they are privileged. Everything they have is given to them because of an evil system. If you look, I have many friends who have not gotten jobs and have been told by hiring managers, well, we need to hire someone diverse for this role. And I think Donald Trump addressed that. He's spoken out against affirmative action and DEI. The Democratic Party hasn't. So and also at the same time, we are telling Hispanic Americans, Black Americans, Americans of all stripes, we want you to make more money, have a better job, and we're for all Americans. But if you're going to be a political movement and tell an entire demographic that you're privileged, and even though like the poorest areas in America, it's like Appalachia, where it's all white people. I think Clay County, Kentucky, correct me if I'm wrong, listeners, might be the poorest county, and that's like 98% white. If you're telling all these people that they're privileged, they're going to say, F you. And they've lost a generation because of that. I don't think they can, like Tim Walz would do this like weird shtick where he'd like put on a flannel shirt and like carry a hammer and be like, I'm just a guy's guy. And it was so inauthentic that, I think what President Trump did was he talks plainly to people. And I think people didn't appreciate the way the Democratic Party spoke to them. So I don't think that shift is going to come back. Now, the key is you have to keep people engaged. Just because people might support President Trump and his America First movement doesn't mean they're always going to support us. We have to keep delivering for them. And that's what we're focused on here, communicating to them and letting people know that we care about your concerns.
We got to wrap up here. One final question for you, since we've been talking a lot about media. Which mainstream media outlet, non-conservative, is doing the best job covering this administration?
Oh, wow.
Or what's one that you tend to...
I would say it's tough because there's a difference between an outlet's editorial pages and their like newsroom.
Yeah.
I think the Wall Street Journal, their editorial page is awful. The editorial board, I think, gets it wrong very often.
Despite being conservative.
Yeah, but they're of the old stripe
Non-MAGA
of
conservative.
Yes, they're the old stripe. The newsroom gets it right generally. I think Axios might be the one because Axios, they just tell the story and they eliminate lots of unnecessary fluff from their pieces just through their format. So I think Axios, the Journal, and look, every outlet has their own reporters who are good on a beat. There's this guy Camilo, I'm blanking on his last name, who covers the immigration beat at CBS. I mean, most of his stories are pretty fair and good. So it's as you know, when you work in the industry, it's every there's people at Fox that don't cover certain beats better, that maybe someone at CNN covers it better. So it's really reporter to reporter. And that's why, if you're listening, you really need to just scroll through different front pages, see and click around. Sometimes you'll be surprised.
But you as an administration, you guys can handle critical coverage if you feel it's fair?
Yeah, 100%. Yes,
the wrap.
I always tell
That's the wrap on you guys.
I always tell reporters, you can ask reporters who've dealt with me, some reporters I'm a complete dick to, and that's when their stories are completely unfair. And other reporters, I'm like, okay, yeah, all right.
We screwed up.
Here's my comment. It's just like, if your story is gonna cover us negatively, but you're gonna request comment, you're gonna hear us out, and whatever you write your story, that's fine. That's your prerogative.
It sounds like you think that immigration is the story that the mainstream media and that reporters in general are getting wrong.
No, it's sometimes they get it right. I just think there are some reporters. I mean, one example of this is they'll cover like the deportation numbers. So I think it was Axios who did this. Now I'm going back to Axios. They would say, the arrests are down. And they would say the arrests are down compared to Biden. Well, it's because fewer people are crossing the southern border. So duh.
Right, like they're missing, are you saying that the mainstream media is maybe missing the bigger picture?
No, there's some who are just activists. Some like mainstream, like I said, Camila at CBS is generally pretty good. Michelle Hackman, Wall Street Journal, great reporter. She's actually blind. I don't think there's many blind reporters. And it's just some are just activists, you know, and because immigration is a beat where you can really use words to tell the story in a different way. So if someone gets arrested, let's say someone gets arrested and they're a mother and a legal immigrant. Someone could, actually, I'll give you an example of a woman from, I believe it's Denver. She's an illegal immigrant activist. She's been like hiding in a church is her like thing. But she has had an order of removal from a judge since the Obama administration. So her immigration case has been completely adjudicated. A judge said she needs to be removed. Yet when she got arrested by ICE, they were like, how dare they arrest this activist, this woman, this member of the community. And so you can you can use language to hide the real story, which is actually we're just following a judge's orders. And I thought all these outlets cared about the rule of law. Or some people are above it, I guess.
Alex, we can keep this conversation going all day. We're getting the wrap sign here, so...
Sorry for ranting.
We're going to wrap it up here and hopefully continue the conversation at another point.
Awesome, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.